Hi, welcome to Mysterious Destinations of Idaho. I'm your host, Brett, and we are the Southeast Idaho Paranormal Organization. And our members here today, we've got Nicole, Scott, Lisa, and our co-host, John.
SEIPO is a paranormal investigating organization who is based in the social sciences. Each one of our members has some educational background in one of the fields of social sciences. I myself have a bachelor's from Idaho State University in cultural anthropology. I also studied at the University of Guadalajara in Guadalajara, Mexico. And each one of our members is now going to tell you a little bit about their educational background.
I'm Lisa, and I have been studying at ISU and also studying it in sociology.
My name is Scott Bryan, and I received a bachelor's degree in anthropology from Idaho State University. And then later I was able to attend graduate school studying Mesoamerican archaeology at Brigham Young University.
I'm Nicole, and I studied anthropology at both ISU and BYU.
And I'm Brett, and I studied sociology at Ricks College and here at Idaho State as well. And now we'd like to get into TP Toys, and it was such a wonderful building that we're going to first of all show you a clip of some of the history behind that building.
All right, so here we are out front of the TP Toys building down here on 1st Street. This was initially a Fargo Wilson Wells dry goods store. It was owned by a family that had some British origin, which makes one of our EVPs very significant that we got. And then over time, in 1918, it was sold to a dairy. It was Mutual Creamery Company. And then in 1945, it was sold to Mutual Creameries of America. My dad, growing up in Pocatello, as a boy, he remembers it being a dairy down here. So I thought that was, and he told me that on his own free will. So I thought that was kind of cool that corroborates our story here. And of course, then in 1982, Pollard's purchased it and became TP Toys for him.
Okay. In the early 1900s, 1st Street was actually a very violent place. At that time, you had a lot of different groups coming into Pocatello due to the railroad. One of the groups that came in were the Chinese. And in fact, when we were doing research on this building, we came across an interesting story. In the very early 1900s, in these alleys near 1st Street, we used to have the Chinese railroad workers who would build their little shanties in this alley right here. Again, as we mentioned, it's a very violent place. These were people that had been displaced, they didn't really have a home, and they didn't really belong in the American culture, or in the culture here in Pocatello. In the early 1900s, there is a newspaper report that a man by the name of Chin Sing, who again was a Chinese railroad worker, had built his shanty home in this alley. Now, he was an older man, and he had actually tried to commit suicide several times, but people that were living with him had always stopped him. But one day when he was all alone, he actually doused himself with kerosene and lit himself on fire, and he literally burned himself to death and his little shanty. That's kind of the violent acts that have happened in the past in these alleys and around TP Toys warehouse.
So we're right here at the railroad across the street from the TP Toys warehouse. And the train was the great method of how people came into Pocatello. Of course, they had passenger trains, but many immigrants, you name the culture, came into Pocatello via the train.
So Scott, what do you think about this history?
Well, I really learned a lot through this investigation with the many different groups that were coming in through the railroad. And, there's some sad stories there, but also there's a rich history there. And a lot of that history is even being built today through the family that owns the building, the Pollards. And in fact, they've had many experiences themselves.
My name is David Pollard. We're standing here in our family warehouse down on South 1st in Pocatello, Idaho. My father bought this warehouse in 1982. I remember when we first bought it, we were looking for a place to store a bunch of the merchandise that he bought through the years. We have had 2 retail stores here, and in 1984 we actually turned this warehouse into TP Toys, which my brother Don ran here for 10, 12 years before we moved over to the Westwood Mall, and about the same time. And so this building has been part of our family for a long time. A lot of us kids have stored our own personal stuff down here as well, and it's really a rather unique building. When we first bought it, it had been the home of Meadow Gold Dairies. They made ice cream and did all sorts of distribution of their milk products out of this warehouse. When we first bought it, I remember coming down and cleaning it out. We had to get rid of all of the different stuff that they used to make all the milk products, and so it's just been kind of an interesting transition from that to our family business. And but anyway, being down here on South First, it's right next to the railroad track, so we've all experienced a lot of weird noises down here. Being next to the tracks, we hear the trains go by a lot. We get a lot of undesirables coming by, hitching rides on the trains, and they end up here in the warehouse. You got to kind of be careful when you come down here and make sure you're usually not alone. But it is kind of a scary place, especially at night when you're by yourself. I usually try not to come down here by myself because there's a lot of weird noises, and I got to admit, voices sometimes that kind of make you want to get in and out as soon as you can. During the day it's not too bad, but there's definitely a lot of strange noises that are here in this old building.
You know, this was definitely our father's and our grandfather's business that we've grown up. I'm one of the grandkids of the Pollard family, and coming up here and trying to clean it up a little bit, make it into something maybe a little bit better has definitely kind of made me a little uneasy at some points. It's hard for me to come down here and work by myself, even though I'm a grown man. A lot of times you'll hear noises. You make sure you feel like sometimes it sounds like somebody's walking up the stairs or someone's banging on the pipes, and it just gets a little uneasy at sometimes because we have heard of people being in here. So every once in a while you feel like maybe somebody could come in, could walk up those stairs, just cause a little bit of ruckus of some sort. Whether or not it would just be somebody pushing a box around. It does get a little uneasy at some points. It happens a lot of times, like you said. I'm not going to come down here at nighttime. Typically, we only come here during the day, and normally when we come down, we make sure we're in pairs, so it's a little bit easier to, definitely, get some more progress done, get some work done. Because if you're not up here with pairs, normally you're sitting here, listening to all the noises and all the silence, and it can get a little uneasy and a little, get a little stressful at some point in time, and you don't get as much progress.
My name is Dirk Pollard. My dad is Don Pollard, the man that opened up Party Palace for TP Toys here in this building. Of course, you can see this is one of the rooms that my cousin stayed in. He's got most of his stuff here. I kind of heard a little bit about some of the stuff that kind of went on here. I know that my cousin's had a couple of nights where he's had to actually, thought that there was somebody here.
All right, my name is Dallas Strang, and I've basically been coming to this warehouse ever since I was a little kid. My brother built a studio that we practiced a lot of music in, so I would come here by myself to practice music, and a lot of times it would sound like to me that somebody was up here walking around or somebody was up here talking, so I would come up here to check things out, and I wouldn't see anybody, and it'd freak me out, so I'd call up a buddy, and we'd search the entire place, because we have had people break in, show up, and open the room and get things, going. Right. And I'd start flipping on lights, and I'd hear to me it sounded like somebody was up here walking around talking to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And it freaked me out because I'd come up here and I wouldn't find anybody, and then my brother would show up and I'd talk to him about it. And then another time I was standing down by our elevator, and it looked like I could see a silhouette of somebody standing there, but it wasn't a full shadow. It was just like a silhouette of somebody's shape. And I came up here and I obviously couldn't find anything. And there's a lot of noises and crazy things that go on in this place. I pretty much just learn to kind of tune it out or just let it be the haunted, creepy warehouse.
The Pollard family has had some very interesting experiences in that building, and we also had some of our own. The females in our group, what experiences did you have?
Well, it's interesting to note that Nicole and I like to team up and do investigations together. And we've started noticing that there's kind of a pattern going on where either the females will have all of the experiences or many of the experiences, or else it'll be the men.
Lisa and I really enjoyed investigating, but we didn't have any paranormal activity. We didn't record anything, and we didn't have any experiences. However, the men's experiences started as soon as we walked in the door. John, can you tell us about that?
The first experience that we had was when we first walked into the building. We walked into the building, and I have a quick clip that I'll explain it, but quickly. When we opened the building to begin the investigation that night, I believe that I saw a shadow or a figure of a person looking around a corner all the way down at the end of the hallway in the building. And what was interesting is that it was the same experience that some of the Pollard family members had had. So we had had a similar experience without talking to each other. And so we'll just show a little bit about what my experience was.
When we were here the night of the Haunted History Tour last October, we were outside, and as we were just finishing up our part of the program, or part of the tour at this particular building, my children that were standing right by me at the time noticed a figure up in the window. They both saw it, a white figure. Scott, John, and myself, we each were guides on buses. We got on, and we had different individuals tell us that they saw it too. Now, the interesting thing about this is, besides being on 3 different buses, if you look at the height of these windows, as you can tell by just my standing here, you're only going to get about my head, maybe, looking down into the street.
Nations. As Brett talked about, his children thought they had seen a figure up in these top windows here. That in itself would have been interesting, but we even had more. Not only did Brett's children believe they had seen something, but right here during the tour we had our buses parked. Many of our guests, when they had gotten back on the buses, were looking and they saw either what they described as a white light or a white figure up in these top windows here. Again, I would estimate that there was probably in the number of between 40 to 60 people that also reported on our tour seeing something up in these windows, again described as a white light or a white figure.
When Brian asked me if he could do an investigation here at the warehouse, I thought it sounded like a good idea. Like I said, we've heard lots of strange stories and lots of strange noises being down here. But I wanted to meet him during the day so I could kind of show him around. There's a lot of stuff. Didn't want him tripping over stuff and getting hurt. We have an elevator shaft and steep stairs. So we came down earlier that day to do this walkthrough. And I showed him the first floor here. This is basically a 2-story warehouse. Showed him the first floor, and we went to the back there. And that's where one thing we make sure we do is don't leave the warehouse with the lights on, because there are quite a few lights on. And I know I shut the lights off. And then we went upstairs. I showed him around upstairs, and we had an opportunity to check out different places in the warehouse. I wanted to be safe, about.
The night of the investigation, I had an interesting personal experience. When we got here to the building, it was about 10:15 at night. And when we walked into the building, the first thing that we noticed is that one of the lights in the back of the building had been turned on. Now, I had not been on the initial walkthrough, but I'd been told by Scott and the others that the lights had all been shut off when they had left the building from the initial walkthrough early in the evening. As we all kind of walked in, then we all said, okay, well, this is where we're going to set up. And everybody turned and went this way.
They headed out to get more equipment. As I was standing right here, I distinctly saw a Head and Shoulders come around the corner in the back of the room where the light was on. I saw a distinct Head and Shoulders peek around the corner about where the elevator shaft is back there. Now that night, it was nighttime, it was dark, but I saw the shadow of a Head and Shoulders come around the corner very quickly and peek out.
Standing down by our elevator, and it looked like I could see a silhouette of somebody standing there, but it wasn't a full shadow, it was just like a silhouette of somebody's shape. And I came up here and I obviously couldn't find anything.
Now I didn't see features, I didn't see if it was a man or a woman. I just saw very quickly a dark Head and Shoulders come around the corner like this and take a peek at us and then pull back very quickly.
That was a very unique experience that I had, and I had never had an experience like that before. I know what I saw, even today, I don't know exactly how to interpret it.
You know, it's interesting too, John. You know, in the 36 years that I've known you, you know, we've been through a lot. We've done a lot of stuff, but I've never seen you as shaken up as you were at that night. And so I know whatever it was that you saw definitely was something that definitely freaked you out. But rolling into our investigation, we want to present some of our EVPs that we've collected. We're going to play this first one for you now, which Scott and I were doing, and we'll just play that now and go from there.
My name is Scott Bryan, and I was here on the night in October when we investigated this TP Toys warehouse. One of the experiences I had, again, was collecting a EVP. And again, like other EVPs we had found that night, it seemed to be of a woman. It was at this location that Brett Yost and I were investigating. Now, throughout the night, we felt very comfortable in this building. My wife and I had investigated up on the second floor, hadn't really felt anything. We had heard some strange noises that we couldn't explain, but again, we weren't prepared to say that was paranormal. So, into the investigation, me and Brett decided to provoke a little. And we're not real mean when we provoke, but we start to ask some very pointed questions. And it was at this time that I decided to ask whoever was here if they had had an abusive father. And I said to them, "Did your father hit you?" And on my digital recorder at that time, we received a very clear EVP that simply said, "Hit me." And that was found again in this area of the TP Toy warehouse on the second floor.
Hit you. Now that EVP clip that me and Brett caught, we really believe that it says, "Hit me." And again, I found that very significant because, again, I had just asked that question, as you heard, has your father hit you? Again, trying to provoke just a little bit. But again, to get a direct response to a question that we're asking really goes a long ways in saying that there is something happening at the TP Toys warehouse. But really, Brett, you even had a better experience that night. In fact, it's probably one of the best pieces of evidence we've ever caught in any investigation around Idaho.
Yeah, that's true. You know, between the EVP that you caught and the EVP that I captured, I think it really shows that there's an intelligent interaction going on. And this next clip that we're going to play for you is still one I'm proud of it. It's my first EVP I caught. We're going to go ahead and play that clip for you now.
So this is the spot where I picked up my first actual EVP since I've been part of this group. We're right here up on the second floor of the TP Toys warehouse. Myself and Ryan were just right in this very spot. I was just walking along looking at shelves that were here at the time. And what I didn't know as I was admiring some of the things that were on the shelves is that we picked up an EVP of an individual speaking to me. And we're going to play that clip.
Yeah, train brake, definitely. You know, imagine living up here.
Oh, I know. Under these glasses all over the place.
Yeah, well, you got yourself a headboard for that air mattress he has in here. And you can watch Jungle Book on video. Yeah, just Book of Mormon on TV.
And it was interesting because Ryan was right here with a camera, had audio on it, didn't pick that sound up at all on that camera. And right around the corner of the shelf, we had our DVR system camera set up here with audio on it, and it didn't pick anything up either. It was just on my digital recorder that I had with me at the time.
So we consider this EVP to be some of the best evidence we have ever collected, simply for the fact that it seemed to be a direct communication to Brett. The recorder that Ryan Denning had did not pick up the voice, nor did the DVR camera that we had stationed right next to him. The voice only appeared on Brett Yost's recorder. So was it a message to Brett? There was no chance of contamination. There was only one female in the building at the time, and she was down on the first floor. And sound does not pass through these floors. It's a very, very solid building.
The thing about it that was neat for me is that was my first EVP that I've picked up as part of this group, as I said earlier. And
so that clip really was something else. It's definitely, in the time that we've been doing this, one of our most clear EVPs that we've gotten. For me personally, that was as I've said in the video, it was my first EVP that I actually picked up on my recorder. And it was really cool to be able to experience that. I remember John calling me and saying, Brett, you've got to get over here and listen to this, as he was analyzing the evidence. And at first I was a little creeped out, I got to admit that. But as I sat back and listened to it more and more, it just made me realize that with the nature of what we're doing, that there's an interaction going on, and it really helps back up what we do.
This experience has actually earned Brett the nickname of Dr. Love.
Yeah, Dr. Love.
Right. You could say I found my soulmate. All right. But not just me, because everyone heard this EVP. I just want to know, we'll just go down the way here and just get everyone's opinion. Let's start with you, John.
Well, one thing I wanted to bring up is one of my positions, one of the things that I do in SEIPO is I analyze a lot of the recordings that we do. I analyze a lot of the video. There's only been a very few times when I've analyzed audio recordings, and I found things that just floor me from the second that I hear them. Probably only once or twice ever have I heard something as clear as that. I remember reviewing that recording and then just saying, wow, am I hearing what I'm hearing, and recording it or rewinding it over and over again and saying, yes, I am hearing it. I am hearing it. And I remember giving you that call and saying, Brett, you have got to hear this. Again, I was floored when I found that EVP when I was reviewing that recording.
Lisa, how did you feel about TP Toys?
You know, TP Toys was one of my favorite investigations. Nicole and I had a really good time. Like she said before, we didn't really have any personal experiences and we didn't really catch anything, but we just enjoyed being in the building. We never felt like afraid or insecure at any time, like we were, there was something there that would harm us. We just had a really enjoyable time with the team. And the thing that's really interesting is that a lot of times when you're doing an investigation, you don't really feel anything, but afterwards you catch things on tape or you catch things on EVP, and that's when the realization that it doesn't really have to be a kind of a thing that you're kind of setting up or planning. It just kind of happens, and it's really fascinating to me how that works.
TP Toys for me is I'm going to remember it as an investigation I really learned a lot. First of all, John, you had that experience where you saw that shadow. Now, we did not know when you had that experience that a member of the Pollard family had had a very similar experience where he described almost the exact same thing you saw. And to me, that just taught me a lot that there are things happening. I mean, we talk about, are these things a coincidence? Are the things we're just making up in our minds? But again, here was an example of a person that had an experience, and then you come in, you have another unique experience, and yet they're so similar. It really tells me there's something going on in TP Toys warehouse.
Well, and that brings up another point that Brett's EVP actually correlated with some of the history that we didn't know anything about the building when we investigated. But later on, when we investigated the history of the building, a family who had immigrated from England were the ones that actually built the building. So the word lovey and the British accent in the EVP actually had significance that we were not aware of, when we first started the investigation.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing too, was just how everything came together so well. The experience, the research, and then our experiences.
I really think that's what validates why we do what we do. It certainly makes for a great investigation. We've had several, and this is certainly in my top 3 of the what we've investigated so far. And I think, again, it's another instance like Ender's Hotel where we just all felt comfortable, enjoyed it, and had a great time. And then when we go back review the evidence, then there it is.
Yeah, it's amazing the stuff that you find in your own backyard. I mean, this is, again, why we love to do this and why we're not just ghost hunters, but we're really doing history here, because you never know what you're going to find in your own backyard.
So we just want to thank you again. We had another great time presenting this to you. And we'd especially like to thank the Pollard family for allowing us into the building to investigate it, and Old Town Pocatello. They've been a big help to us as well. And also, we always invite you, the public, to if you have any questions, comments about what we're doing, any input at all, we welcome that. And you can just address us at SEIPO.org, CPO.org, with any of that information.
Let's